everybody, Mike Jeffers, Chicago Jazz Magazine, ChicagoJazz.com. We are back in the new year, 2024. Welcome back. And I am excited to kick off this season of Around Towns with a very interesting group. Of course, two guys I know very well. We've got Frank Russell, a great bassist who you've seen on this show many times, along with Dave Katzman, who I've had on the show to talk about blues, jazz, promotions, all that good stuff. And they've created this band, Windy City Jazz Electric, which is going to be happening at the Jazz Institute's Winter Jazz Fair, which is coming up February 23rd, Friday, February 23rd. It actually goes from 11:30 a.m. until 10 p.m. at the Cultural Center, which of course is at 78 East Washington Street, right there in Chicago. I know everybody knows where that is. It's a free event put on by the Jazz Institute. In addition to the Windy City Jazz Electric, you can hear John Arabagon's quartet. Marcus Carroll's going to be there. Bethany Pickens has her group there. Sherelle Cassidy's going to be there. We've got Hunter Diamond and Mike Reed performing a duo thing, which is going to be cool. Perez Whitted's going to be there with Let Freedom Swing. But of course, we are here to talk about the incredible group that got put together, I think it was last year, the Windy City Jazz Electric. And Dave, Frank, welcome to the show as usual. Great to see you guys, and I'm glad we're talking about this.
Hey, Mike, Happy New Year.
Same to you guys. So, Dave, why don't we kick it off with you, since you took the reins on this and spearheaded this and put this incredible group together. Why don't you talk a little bit about how this band came about and what it was for originally,
Sure.
like that maiden voyage, and how it kind of got started?
Well, this was an opportunity that was came out of the blue. My wife has a friend who named Tamara Jenkins, who is involved with the Highland Park High School. And they put on a festival called the Focus on the Arts Festival. It's a 3-day festival, medias, dance, art, music, projection, everything. And a band, the opening night band, dropped out 3 weeks before the show, which is, I don't know how you could do that, but none of my business why they dropped out. And Tamara called my wife and asked if she knew anybody who could who had contact with a very good jazz band of a very high caliber. And my wife handed the phone over to me, and out of nowhere, this situation developed. And I said, I don't have a band. I can just call one band, but I certainly can put together a band for you. And I started going through my notes, and I gave you a call, and you suggested I call Frank, which was a great suggestion. Yeah, perfect suggestion.
When in doubt, call Frank Russell. That's my
right.
motto.
I'm like Ghostbusters. I'm Bassbusters.
There you go. And Frank and I, with all the people we know and all the players we know, put together this band of incredible players. And it just kind of grew on its own. And the music is exceptional, and all the players bring an extreme talent to the table. And I know myself, the first time I heard it in rehearsal, it was like, oh my God, this is beyond this one job. This is, a situation that is really pretty profound. And everyone in the band really loved it, and we all decided to keep going. And that's kind of where we're at now. It's been everyone with their schedules. It's been hard to get everybody together at one time, but hopefully this summer and fall, we're going to be doing a lot of gigs.
Well, and it's cool because actually this is going to be one of the first times you guys are playing together as a group in Chicago, downtown Chicago, for the Jazz Institute. So it's easy access, of course, 1 p.m. to 2 p.m., February 23rd. At the Cultural Center. Yes, you heard me right. It is on Friday at 1 to 2 p.m. So if you are off, great. If not, take a late lunch and get over there. And it's free. Of course, WindyCityJazzElectric.com. Now, Frank, I know you've played with everybody in the band in one way or another. So let me run it down. You've got, of course, yourself, and then you've got Robert Irving III, Bobby Irving, incredible. You guys perform together all the time. Paul Wertico, I know you guys have been back and forth. I'm sure you've played some gigs.
You know what? I've never played with Paul.
You never played with Paul? That's amazing.
I've been a big fan of his. I told him he was kind of the soundtrack to me and my wife when we first got together in '87.
Yeah.
And he started playing with Pat Metheny. So I said, I know your cymbals from anything. And we and when we start playing together, it was just so. You know, you as you know, I played drums before I played bass guitar. So me and drummers, I play with you. We kind of hook up very quickly.
That's
and
right.
I've had the fortune of playing with some of the greatest drummers in the world, from Alphonse Mouzon, Paul Wertico, Peter Erskine, Jeff Tane Watts, on and on. And it just was so natural. So yeah, this is the first time. Then when I went to first rehearsal with Paul, you walk in there, he's got 7 Grammys on the mantle.
Hey,
excuse me, Paul.
they
dare I?
They just stand. You got kind of bow to them.
It's and all those records I have and played, for years. So, you can keep going with the band though. But this is the first time I've been playing with Paul. We become really dear friends.
Yeah, that's amazing to me that the two of you, because you've both been in town, but of course he's been traveling, you travel, everybody's on separate circuits, and if you never can lock up. So this is a great opportunity for people to hear this, because you have to hear the two of them playing together. And of course you have Jose Rondon, Steve Eisen, and then Court Wilkes is in the band. He's not going to be on this hit, but he's in the band too. So that's the Windy City Jazz Electric. So Frank, talk a little bit about when you first heard from Dave. And I know that you were instrumental in putting this band, kind of suggesting people and getting the band together. What was the repertoire in your mind going to be? I mean, because I know you have a lot of original stuff, and I'm sure a lot of these other guys do. I know Bobby does, and I know Steve does.
Yeah.
And putting everything together, what was the repertoire, and how'd you focus on that?
Well, everybody in the band are leaders in their own right. Everybody writes. I think everybody has albums out. And I just thought when Dave came, he suggested Paul Wertico right away, and my mind just said bing, bing, bing. and who would you suggest? So, Robert Irving III is one of my dear friends for 40 years.
And I went bing, bing, bing when you said that. So.
Yeah, and he's probably one of the greatest musicians. My wife doesn't like me saying this. I said it at our first inaugural gig. I said, "This is the greatest band I've ever played with." She said, "But what about all those other bands?" She said, "Are they going to be upset?" I said, "Well, if they are, they're in the wrong business."
That's right.
I just, at this point, after the age 50, I just tell the truth. I tell what's in my heart. And of course, these guys are just incredible. Everybody gets along great. Paul told me that's kind of cool too, that there's no, even if they're egos, we put them in check like Quincy Jones did for We Are the World. Because everybody, we just respect each other, and we know how many thousands of hours it's taken to get to this point. And we've gotten to this point as a band. And after the first gig, Dave and I said, we got to keep this going. And we have, and we're going to start recording and stuff. And we hope to take this. I like what Weather Report said when they started his band. Joe Zawinul said, "Well, what do you plan? What are your plans for this band?" He says, "I want to take it around the world."
We're working on it.
But the cool thing is that I know this is based out of it's Chicago, right? So it's all Chicago. Mm-hmm. Chicago, to me, when people say Chicago jazz, you can go all the way back to the traditional, back to the 1920s, the 1910s, all of that. And you're coming up through, Baby Dodds used to live in Chicago, obviously Louis Armstrong. But then the fusion scene and the funk scene and the R&B scene, all of that comes together. And to me, in 2024, hello, Mike, 2024, But all of that whole style now, I think that the Chicago sound is everything mixed together these days in the jazz world. I mean, there's so many different artists mixing everything together because of all the influences, and you guys are the perfect example of that. Especially
this band is the perfect example of that. I mean, I kind of describe it as Weather Report meets Lady Smith Black Mambazo meets George Benson without a guitar player. That's a whole nother story. I've had tons of guys ask me, "Y'all need a guitar slot?" I said, "Yeah, but a band like this, it's got to be somebody just under George Benson." But no, I shouldn't say that. But they got to be pretty substantial. But yeah, and Paul Wertico is just a master of all types of world music. He has a room with all these different drums, and he said, "Frank, what does this sound like?" He goes in the rooms and pulls up some new sticks from Zimbabwe somewhere, and yeah, that's cool. Whatever you say, I'm fine with. And then Bobby Irvin comes from the Miles Davis ilk. He led Miles. He was Miles's leader. I mean, he led the band for 8 years.
So music
Rendon,
director.
Rendon is just one of the greatest percussion players. And Steve Eisen, I played with years ago. He's just such a monster, man. And who's left? Corey Wilkes. I mean, we the late Ken Chaney and I used to do shows that started guys' careers off with the press, and we did Corey Wilkes and Maurice Brown.
Yep.
And I said, you guys owe us checks because you've had some pretty good careers since we got you going. So he's like my little brother, and he's just a monster. And like I said, everybody writes, and we're gonna try to get everybody's tunes. There's no leaders in this band. Everybody's the leader. I happen to use the microphone because I guess I had the gift of gab. That's what my mother tells me. I kind of suck up the room. But you couldn't tell that though, could you, Mike?
No, I barely. It's always every time I interview, I've got to just drag the information out of it. Unbelievable. So Dave, talk a little bit as we're getting ready to wrap this up. Of course, the Windy City Jazz Electric, Friday, February 23rd, 1 p.m., 2 p.m., Claudia Cassidy Theater at the Cultural Center right there in Chicago. Free. jazzinchicago.org is the Jazz Institute's website. I'm so glad they're bringing the Jazz Fair back. How did this whole thing happen where they reached out to you and got you guys connected? Because they've got quite an eclectic amount of different music there, especially for an all-day thing on a Friday. They've got a lot of killer groups.
Well, they absolutely do. It's wonderful. Again, why on Friday when it should be on Saturday? But I won't go there. Actually, I was talking to him quite a bit about the band playing at the Chicago Jazz Fest because they handle a certain amount of the booking there, and we're still talking. We'll see. But they reached out to me about this because they really. When I started talking to them, it was right before Jazz Fest last year, and it was already too late. But they really were excited about the band, and they want to work with the band quite a bit, as much as possible. And so this is the first step with them, basically. And it's wonderful that we're in the theater at the Cultural Center. It's a nice 200-seat theater that sounds good. And the one room that most live music is at the Cultural Center is very boomy and echoey. Beautiful room, looks wonderful, but we're in the good sounding. So I'm very pleased about that. And yeah, it's going to be great. And, I hope everybody comes out, ditches work, takes a late lunch or whatever, and comes out and sees us.
It kind of reminds me, and Frank, you can remember this, when they used to do that music at noon at the DePaul Student Center or whatever it is downtown.
Yeah.
They used to have that and they used to have like noon to 1 and 1 to 2 sets and stuff. I remember playing there a couple of times back.
Yeah, I played there.
And it was the most bizarre thing because you're loading in at like 10:30 or 11. And you're like, what is this? It's like a Friday. And then all of a sudden there'd be like 200 people would show up.
Yes.
It would all be the lunch break. And you guys have a great slot because that can still happen downtown for folks that are working, So it just reminded me of that when I was looking at that. I was like, oh man, I remember playing some of those gigs. It was always kind of weird, but then everybody showed up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. So let's make sure everybody knows WindyCityJazzElectric.com. 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. Friday, February 23rd, right there at the Cultural Center. jazzinchicago.org for the Jazz Institute's website. And Frank, before we wrap up, I think this is pretty exciting that at least, even if it's on a Friday, I'm hoping that it'll expand the years beyond. But you and I can probably both remember the Jazz Fair that used to happen at the Blackstone Hotel when the Jazz was in it. And then they tried it a little bit at the Cultural Center. But when it was at the Blackstone Hotel and the Jazz Institute did it, that was a hang for the entire weekend because of everything that was happening. And of course, Joe City's Jazz Showcase being right there. I mean, you remember some of that stuff?
Yeah, I do. I hope that comes back, man. That would be so great. I neglected to mention two. I played with two of the greatest drummers ever. I played with Mike Clark last summer, and but Paul Jackson was one of my biggest influences. And I had heard through the grapevine he wasn't crazy about electric bass players. And I said, "How you not crazy about it?" And your best friend Paul Jackson said, "Well, you got to be like Paul Jackson." So he's actually called me for some gigs and stuff.
Oh man.
So I had to mention him. I played with Paul Wertical and Mike Clark in the past 2 years. Nothing gets better than that.
No. Well, except for Mike Jeffers at the Joe's
And Mike Jeffers.
Cafe in the 90s.
There you go.
Joe's Bebop.
We're going to be playing at his venue too soon.
Yeah, congratulations on that too, Mike. That's a heck of a coup, man. You playing at the booking. What's the name of that place again?
Yeah, so I got brought on, and I'm going to do a little video later on, but we can talk a little bit for a second. Just I got brought on by the board of directors at the Copernicus Center, so I'm now the GM of the Copernicus Theater, which is 1,800 seats, and we are going to be signing and finalizing a lease to take over the Pickwick Theater in downtown Park Ridge and run the big theater as a live music venue. So they've got me in there spearheading the whole thing because I don't have anything else to do, so I figured I would go do that,
Oh yeah, you don't have much to do.
Nothing to do.
So I want to get two bands in there. I want to get the Windy City Jazz Electric and Ladysmith Black Mambazo.
All right, well, we'll set up a separate pitch session that we'll record later, and we can talk all about the details on that stuff.
Yeah.
But guys,
Okay.
Thanks so much for being on. I really appreciate it. Of course, WindyCityJazzElectric.com. Everything's linked up below, and hopefully everybody can get out there. Guys, thanks for being on. As usual, great to see you virtually, and I'm sure I'll see you both in person soon.
Great.
Thanks for having us, man.
Yeah, Mike.
Thanks for starting this off too, Dave.
You got it, man. Thank you for putting it together with me, man. I think we did okay, Frank. What do you think?
I think so.
I think so. And guys, thanks for watching. As usual, as I always say, all the information is at ChicagoJazz.com.